Hi everyone, my name is Abhishek Vishwakarma. Today I will solve Leetcode number is 2181. The question is merge nodes in between zeros. Okay, and as I told you, whenever you start any problem, first you need to understand what the question is mean. The question is merge nodes in between zeros. Now look at here. Here we need to sum it, we need to merge it because these nodes are in between these two zeros node. And here we need to sum it these all nodes because this node is lies in between these two zero nodes. Okay, now we read it. We read the descriptions. You are a given head of linked list which contain a series of integer. Here it contains series of integer. Okay, and separate by zero. Okay, this series of integer which is separate by two zeros, starting and beginning. Sorry, starting and ending. The beginning and end of the linked list will have node value is zero. Here starting and ending, the node value is zero. And the for every two consecutive zero, this consecutive zero, then this consecutive zero, merge all nodes lying in between them into a single node, whose value, it means whenever you merge, you make it a single node, and whose value is sum of these merge nodes. The sum of these merge nodes is 4. And we do for same for these things, these merge nodes. We will make a node, and the sum is this all merge nodes. And now this is our the output. And further, the modified list should not be contain any zero. This is our modified linked list which not contain any zero. And return the head of modified linked list means this is our head. We need to return in the problem. Okay. Now we'll take same example in whiteboard, and also we'll talk about which approach we use and how to solve this problem. Okay. And where yeah, this is a question example number 1. Here the same thing is we need to merge this node and we need to merge this node and make it a node, and we need to modify the node like this. It is 4 and it is 11. Okay, and also make sure that the modified linked list will not contain any zero. Okay, and now how which approach we use? We use two pointer approach. Like how we take one pointer and we take a two pointer. Okay, and this pointer and this two pointer have own jobs, and jobs, the job is this pointer job is to traverse to traverse all zeros, and this pointer has to traverse and submit all non-zero integer, all non-zero integer. It means this pointer is to sum all this pointer. Okay, now what we are doing here, we pointing the node 1 which is t1, and now this point t2 pointer is pointing to the next to the t1. It means the next to the t1, the t2 is point. Now we take a two while loop. How do they work we will talk about later. And as I say that the t2's job is to traverse these nodes. First traverse this node, then traverse this node, and make it sum. The sum is 4. When the t2 come here, the pointer t2 come this node, which means we traverse all non-zero integers. Okay, we traverse all non-zero integer. The sum is 4, and then after what we are doing, then after t2 come here, then what we are doing, we just this node move it here, t2 move at t2. Okay, now it cut it, and now t2, as I say that it is always next to the t1. How do I move the two pointer? T1 is pointing to T2 and T2 is pointing to next T1 next. Okay, now for these things, for this we use the same approach. Now the T2 traverse while loop and again traverse while loop, and dynamically they calculate the sum. The sum is they calculate the sum is 11. And now the pointer is moved. Now the pointer T2 is pointing here. It means we need to break the for loop. Which for loop? This T2 for loop, which dynamically sum all these non-zero integers. Okay, now T2 will move at T1, and now when T2 move T2, it means this will we will traverse entire linked list, entire nodes. Okay, now we write a pseudocode. Pseudocode is that we take a two pointer is pointing to head, the second pointer is pointing to t1 dot next, as I say. Now we take a two for loop. One is inner for loop. The inner for loop termination condition is this: when t2 pointer is pointing to the null, it means we need to terminate this inner for loop here. When t2 is pointing to the null, it means we need to terminate the, sorry, not inner loop, it's the outer loop. It is the outer loop. And the outer loop is make sure we're traversing here the t1, and then t1 is traversing first 0, and then t1 is traversing second 0, and t1 traversing third 0. It means the t1 job is to traversing the only 0 nodes, and t2 part is the t2 job is to traverse only non-integer nodes, which lies in between these two zeros. Okay. Now after this, we need to calculate the sum. We take one variable, and again we take a one loop which calculate the sum, because sometimes the non-integer node should be greater than 1. That's why we are taking a while loop. That's why we take another for loop. Okay. And this for loop, when they terminate when t2 dot value equal to 0, it means like here as I say that when t2 is pointing to t0 nodes, which we need to it means we traverse those nodes which has integer value. It means it has no 0 value. Here we traverse, it means when they pointing to 0 node, it means we need to submit all this integer which is between these two zeros. Okay. And yeah, and here we dynamically submit some t2 dot value. Okay, t2 dot value, and t2 we increment t2. It is same like I++. Okay, and wait a minute. Now here we this is our outer loop, and this is our inner loop. Okay. Yeah, and the next we modified linked list. Okay, how do I modify the linked list? First need to erase this entire thing. That's enough. Yeah, it means whenever you submit, when like we will sum this node. We will sum this node. This node is 4. Sorry, whenever we make the sum of this node is 4. Yeah. Now then here what we are doing, we just erase this thing and reassign the value is 4. Okay. And don't worry about these things. We just what we are doing, we just put here the next pointer is this node. Initially they're pointing to this node. We need to break this next node, and we just pointing new node is pointing to these modified nodes to the next to the 0 node. It's pointing to the next to the 0 nodes. Okay. And now again, when we get a series of integers and we make it we find it a sum, the sum is 11. Now we again initialize first node, this first node. Okay. Now the same things what we are doing, we just pointing to the this. Then now look at the modified version. The modified version is 0. It is 0 because 0 is pointing to this node. Then now they're pointing to the third node, and the next node is pointing to the node 4, and node 4 is next pointing to the null. Okay, they're pointing to the null. So we need to modify it. And how do I write a code? Like this. Here what we are doing, here initially t1 is pointing. Okay, now the t2 is pointing here. T2 pointing here. Now for the first traverse, t1 dot next is what? T1 dot next to next. Why we are calling t1 dot next to next? Next to next is t2 dot next. Why? It means here what we are doing here it is the t1 next is this. T1 next is this, and the t1 next to next is pointing to where? It's pointing to the t2 dot next. You understand? How do I change the next node? because when you change this node, when you modify the link, the previous link will be discarded. Okay, this connection will be removed. This connection will be removed. Okay, then after what we are doing, before these things, we need to first modify this first node. Modify this first node. This first node. Modified by this first node is t1 dot next dot value is equal to sum. And then next we write the code for the how the t1 and t2 moves in the linked list. The t1, as I told you, t1 when t1 is pointing to here, now the t1 is pointing here, and then t2 is pointing to. Now how do I traverse to the next sequence for next group how do I process for next skill A? Then we just pointing our t1 here, and t1 is pointing to the t1 next node. Yeah, now this one and this one cancel. Yeah, t2 is now pointing to t1 next one. t1 next. Okay, now we will write for this. t1 is pointing to t2, and t2 is pointing to t2 dot t1 dot next. We also write a t2 dot next. For better understanding, we write a t1 dot next. Okay, then after we return head dot next. Why we return head dot next? Because here the modified linked list is. Now why we return head dot net? Because the modified, we look at here, this is a modified linked list. The head is pointing here. So in the question they told him the modified list should not be contain any 0, but here modified linked list contains 0. So that's why return here this from next node, and we will return this node 3-4 nodes, and the answer is also 3-4 nodes. And now you do the same thing for the next example. You do for practice, you do for the same this example. And now we code the Java code in Leetcode here. Yeah, as I told you, we need to take two pointer t1 which is pointing to head. Okay, the second t2 is pointing to the head dot next, or also we write temp dot 1. Okay, we take inner for loop. When they terminate, when temp2 is not equal to, when temp is pointing to the null, it means we need to terminate our value. Okay, now take it as some variable where we can store our sum, and this for loop is used for the traversing this node. Which node? This node, for this node which is greater than 1. So that's why we need to write a for loop. Okay, when they terminate, when this value is equal to 0, but we initially want to make it true. If it is not equal to 0, now move on, now continue the loop. Then when the loop is 0, it means you need to terminate. It means those node we calculate which is lies in between this 0. Okay, then sum is temp2 dot value, and temp is moving in between. Now t2 is moving in between these two zeros, is moving this node and this nodes. And after we want modified links. So first we reassign the value by sum, and then after t1 dot next is pointing to t2 dot next, which means this node is pointing to this node, because t1 is pointing here and t2 is pointing here. The t1 dot next is pointing to the t2 dot next. Again I told you it t1 here, t2 means here we reassign the sum of this integers which is 4. Okay, and now this is pointing to this, means it's t1 dot next is pointing to temp2 dot next. Okay, and now we move the temp1 and temp2. Temp1 is pointing to temp2, and temp2 is pointing to temp1 dot next. Okay, that's how they both pointer are traversing in entire linked list. Return head dot next. Why we are returning head dot next? We will told in previous explanations. Okay, now let's just run. Where it's temp2 dot value. Oh, it's not temp2 dot value. It's temp2 dot next. Okay, we just traversing the one node to another. Now successfully run these two example. Now we submit it. Yeah, this is optimized version. Our runtime is 4 ms and beat 99.72. Now thank you guys for watching this videos, and one more things, you just subscribe this channel and